In the face of accelerating climate change, understanding how species adapt to shifting environmental conditions is a pressing challenge in ecological science. One of the most informative indicators of such adaptation is phenology, the study of seasonal biological events and their timing. Phenological changes such as earlier migrations or breeding times have been widely documented in terrestrial systems, but are less well understood in marine environments, particularly among higher trophic level species like whales. Marine ecosystems are now revealing their own climate-driven shifts. Among the most affected is the Gulf of Maine, in the North Atlantic, a region that has warmed at a rate 3 times faster than the global ocean average. With significant changes in sea surface and bottom temperatures, the seasonal timing of phytoplankton blooms, zooplankton emergence, and other primary productivity events is being altered. These ecological disruptions cascade through the food web and can ultimately affect the behavior and survival of large marine animals. Migratory baleen whales, including the critically endangered North Atlantic right whale, along with humpback and fin whales, depend on the seasonal availability of prey in specific marine habitats to sustain their energetic demands during migration and reproduction. The Gulf of Maine, and particularly Cape Cod Bay, has long functioned as a critical seasonal foraging ground, particularly during the winter and spring months when whales arrive to exploit dense aggregations of zooplankton and small fish. However, persistent ocean warming is disrupting the established patterns of primary and secondary productivity that underpin these food resources. As sea temperatures shift and prey distributions become increasingly variable, the timing and spatial extent of whale habitat use are likely to change. These climate-driven alterations have direct implications for the ecology, conservation, and management of these highly mobile and vulnerable species. To improve the understanding of these changes and the driving environmental factors, Pendleton et al., in the 2022 study, Decadal Scale Phenology and Seasonal Climate Drivers of Migratory Baleen Whales in a Rapidly Warming Marine Ecosystem, conducted a comprehensive analysis of whale phenology in Cape Cod Bay. Leveraging over 2 decades of aerial survey data, the research employed a novel, multi-season occupancy modeling framework. This approach enabled the team to examine both spatial and temporal dynamics of whale presence, accounting for imperfect detection and quantifying how occupancy patterns have shifted over time. Crucially, the study tested the hypothesis that changes in whale habitat use are linked to regional scale shifts in the thermal onset of spring. By investigating the timing and environmental drivers of whale presence, this study contributes critical insights into the capacity of highly migratory marine species to respond to a rapidly warming ocean, and underscores the need for adaptive conservation strategies in a changing world. To investigate how migratory baleen whales are responding to a changing climate, the researchers conducted a comprehensive analysis of whale presence in Cape Cod Bay over a 21-year period, from 1998 to 2018. The core of the study relied on a long-standing program of aerial surveys conducted by marine mammal experts, which involved systematically flying transects across the bay during the winter and spring seasons. Observers recorded the presence or absence of 3 whale species, North Atlantic right whales, humpback whales, and fin whales, along defined flight paths, capturing detailed spatial and temporal data on habitat use. To interpret these data, the researchers used a statistical modeling framework designed to estimate changes in species occurrence over time while accounting for imperfect detection. Specifically, they applied a multi-season occupancy model, which distinguishes whether a species is newly arriving in an area, remaining in place, or departing, all based on repeated observations across consistent time intervals. This method allowed for the identification of trends in the timing of peak habitat use, or phenological shifts, across the study period. The research team also incorporated a range of environmental data into the analysis, including sea surface temperatures, satellite-derived chlorophyll concentrations as a proxy for ocean productivity, and local bathymetry, A key climate indicator, the thermal spring transition date, representing when ocean temperatures cross an annual threshold, was used to evaluate how seasonal warming patterns in different parts of the Gulf of Maine influenced whale presence. By integrating whale sightings with oceanographic conditions, the study was able to assess both long-term trends and year-to-year variability in whale habitat use. This methodology provided a powerful means to link climate-driven environmental change with the behavioral ecology of these endangered and ecologically important marine mammals. The study revealed significant shifts in the seasonal habitat use of baleen whales in Cape Cod Bay over the two-decade observation period. Most notably, both North Atlantic right whales and humpback whales demonstrated a consistent delay in the timing of their peak presence. For right whales, the day of maximum habitat use shifted later by approximately 18 days over the 21-year study period. Humpback whales showed a similar delay of about 19 days. In contrast, fin whales did not exhibit a statistically significant shift in the timing of their peak presence. In terms of within-season patterns, right whale occupancy in Cape Cod Bay began increasing significantly from mid-February and remained elevated through April, with some years showing continued presence into May. For humpback whales, presence was typically low in February, but peaked in April, with moderate variation across years. Fin whale presence followed a similar unimodal pattern, peaking in April, although occupancy levels were generally intermediate between those of right and humpback whales. Trends in habitat use were also linked to environmental variables. The timing of peak right whale occupancy showed a significant negative correlation with the spring transition date in the western Gulf of Maine, indicating that right whales delayed their peak use of the bay in years when warming occurred earlier. Conversely, fin whale peak timing was positively correlated with the spring transition in the eastern Gulf of Maine, suggesting differing spatial responses to seasonal warming across species. Over time, the spatial extent of right whale presence increased during the core months of habitat use, especially in March and April. Humpback whales showed decreasing occupancy in late February and March, while fin whales demonstrated an increasing trend in early March. These patterns reflect dynamic, species-specific responses to climate variability and changing oceanographic conditions in one of the fastest-warming marine ecosystems on the planet. In sum, this study provides strong evidence that large migratory baleen whales are altering the timing of their habitat use in response to climate-driven environmental changes in the Gulf of Maine. The observed phenological shifts, especially the delayed peak presence of North Atlantic right whales and humpback whales, demonstrate that these species are capable of adjusting their seasonal behaviors, but also highlight the complex and species-specific nature of these responses. Notably, while right whales showed clear links to warming patterns in the western Gulf of Maine, fin whales responded more strongly to changes in the eastern region. These differences likely reflect variation in feeding strategies and prey preferences, with right whales more tightly coupled to low trophic level food sources that are directly affected by seasonal ocean conditions. Importantly, these changes raise critical concerns about the effectiveness of existing management strategies. Conservation measures, such as vessel speed limits and fishing gear restrictions, have historically been timed to coincide with expected whale presence based on past seasonal patterns. However, as whales adjust the timing of their habitat use, these static protections may no longer align with actual risk periods, potentially reducing their effectiveness. This mismatch is particularly concerning for the critically endangered North Atlantic right whale, whose survival is already imperiled by ship strikes and entanglements. The study also underscores the value of long-term, high-resolution monitoring programs, which are essential to detect and interpret gradual ecological shifts. While the findings are robust, the authors acknowledge limitations, including the challenges of detecting subsurface animals and the absence of direct measurements of zooplankton or any potential prey availability, which likely mediate whale responses to environmental change. Looking ahead, future research should focus on integrating fine-scale prey dynamics, expanding spatial coverage beyond Cape Cod Bay, and refining models combining climate, ocean, and ecology to better anticipate species responses. As marine ecosystems continue to warm and reorganize, such studies will be crucial for informing adaptive management strategies that remain effective under rapidly shifting conditions. Ultimately, this work highlights the critical importance of understanding phenological change in marine species. As indicators of broader ecological transformation, whales provide not only a warning of the pressures facing marine systems, but also a guide for how management and conservation must evolve in the era of climate change.